Fief of Viborg, Margraviate of Wiburg 1320–1534, was for some 2 centuries a late medieval feudal fief in the southeastern border of Finland and the entire Swedish realm, held by its chatelain, a fiefed, appointed feudal lord. History of the Margraviate. For extended periods the medieval commanders of Viborg Castle, on the border with Republic of Novgorod, did in practice function as margraves, collecting the crown's incomes from the fief in their own name and being entitled to keep them all to use for the defense of the realm's eastern border. They enjoyed more independence than the kingdom's other castellans, burgraves. However, the Fief of Viborg Castle and its county was not formally hereditary, though almost all appointees were from certain families, related to the Margraviate family that also between the 1350s and 1390s held the Swedish titular version of the earldom of Orkney. Organization of that new territory for the Swedish realm took place between the 1290s and 1330s. The conquered Kexholm was lost, and Neva River's Landskrona was destroyed catastrophically. There was much sporadic warring for decades after, until 1323. Viborg was however held, and the coast westwards. When the conquest became established, a special fief became formed. Gotland had strong trade relations with coastal Karelia. Novgorod succeeded maintaining its control of the Ladoga coast and Neva River. The independence and privileges of the county were founded by the John and Poiko brothers, Squire Peter Johnson and his elder brother Susanne Johnson, Lord of Flischalt, Royal Councillor, the Law Speaker of Teorad, together with the close relative Charles, Bishop of Linköping, allies of the new King Magnus IV of Sweden. In 1320 or 1321 purchased Dominus Efflerus, the bailiff of the deposed King Birger of Sweden, out from Viborg Castle. They committed to keep the castle and its revenues for Bishop Charles until the purchase price be compensated. Their escutcheon depicted a boat, as is also depicted in arms of the Sickald Bond family and Snakenborg family and Baat family and Puke family, and they were from an originally Smålandic family. Some of them are at the time using nickname Hark. Lord Peter was set up as the fief holder, and the whole clan participated in consolidating the fief. They also brought numbers of the Smålandic peasants to start farms in the county. There are toponymic indications of an influx of southern Swedish immigrants having settled in vicinities of Viborg and on the coast west up to Kymi River. Peter and son recognized the new king and received important privileges, which effectively turned the holding of Viborg as an independent feudal fief, the start of a veritable margraviate. The position of this fief chatelain was to defend the castle and the county, to administer them, with freedom to organize the internal affairs of the county as it pleased them, to bear the revenues and use as it pleased. They also grabbed immense wealth for the family. Son's son Eringar, Earl of Orkney, is a recorded owner of Kimenagud Manor in the Viborg province, on which spot the later town of Kotka became erected. Munkenes, an immense domain in Vedalax, was owned first by Sten Turesson Bilka, Lord High Constable of Sweden, and then his son Sten Stenson, Lord of Ängsö. All the Swedish party negotiators of Treaty of Göteborg 1323, 3 years after the acquisition of Viborg, appear to be members of their extended family or representatives of Bishop Charles's diocese and merchants of Gotland, which was a part of that diocese. Its chatelains were generally from the most powerful families of the kingdom. They enjoyed large administrative powers and a good distance from the capital. Those realities made them practically independent rulers. The position of Viborg's lord became effectively independent. As such, it was desired by many powerful magnates. In the 1350s it was held by Earl Eringil's brother-in-law, the mighty kingmaker Nicholas Turesin, Lord of Krakarum of the Bielka. He personally owned Kaukjavi domain in the Karelian Isthmus near Viborg. They organized defenses, constant local guarding, provisions of food and equipment, kept fortress in shape, kept mercenaries and paid military. The direct line Johnson family ended in 1392 at the death of Earl Eringil. However, the Margraviate was, almost without exception, held by descendants of their extended family until its very end. Over 2 centuries, early Margraves of Viborg created a petty nobility, Napadel, around the strategic points. More capable peasants with some leader role in local community were given tax exemption against guard duties of local strongholds. Those somewhat primitive lineary fortresses, cavalry service was not required from them for the Frul's tax exemption. Petty nobility of Vekalax is particularly noted in literature for as having been an example of such petty nobility. Later Margraves, such as Christa Nielsen and Charles Knutson, declined to accept fully the nobility of such families of the petty nobility. Apparently the main reason why the chatelain of the Viborg county succeeded in keeping such an independent position compared to other castles and the holders was Viborg's extraordinary position as the easternmost outpost and the stronghold of the Swedish realm against eastern neighboring power. Their attacks and desires to annex more land. Revenues from this county were needed for the defense of eastern border, which usually was understood in the government of He Kingdom, where eastern defense not granted sufficient resources. Taxes from more western areas would possibly also have been lost to enemy. These fiefholders were also responsible for holding the border norther. In the 1470s, they established another castle, Olivsborg, over 100 kilometers north of Viborg. All the Middle Ages, that fortress was kept under the command of Viborg. Important personages who held Viborg County as the fief were Bo Johnson Grip, Christa Nielsen Vasa, Charles Knutson Bond, Erik Axelsson Tot P. Knut Posse, Stenskjær the Elder, Erik Bielka and Count John of Hoya. Particularly in 1440s and in late 15th century, the fortresses of the Viborg castle were further enlarged and built. In 1534, King Gustav I of Sweden abolished the independent fief by deposing and exiling his brother-in-law John, Count of Hoya. Lord Niels Grab took Viborg castle by force on behalf of the king and became its royal governor, without gaining feudal privileges held by earlier holders of the castle. List of fiefholders of the Viborg castle. This is to list all those medieval and 16th century lords who held Viborg castle and its fief, as fiefed chatelains, in the independent way and not simply as governors or bailiffs. The list is incomplete, due to the scarcity of historical sources and thus gaps. In 1320, Lord Peter Johnson purchased the castle and its dominions from the bailiff Eflaus set by the deposed King Birger. 1320 to 1338 Peter Johnson. 1340 Dan Nicholson, c. 1348 Gerhard Skite, 1357 to 1364 Nils Turesin Bielka, Kingdom's Lord High Justiciar, son-in-law of Peter Johnson's brother, 1360s, Nils Ayres, as pawn. 1370 King Albrecht, 1371 to 1386 Bo Johnson Grip, Lord High Justiciar, 1386–1399 Carl Charles Ulfson, Lord of Tofta, Kingdom's Lord High Constable, stepson of a niece of Peter Johnson, 1403–1417 Tord Bond, Lord High Constable, distant cousin of Peter Johnson, 1417–1442 Christa Nielsen Vasa, Lord High Justiciar, brother-in-law of Tord Bond, 1440–1448 Carl Charles Knutson, Lord of Fogge-Alvik, Lord High Constable, grandson of Charles Alvson and of Tord Bond, became in 1448 king. 1457–1481 Erik Axelsson Tott, great-grandson of Tord Bond, son of a first cousin of Charles Knutson. 1481 Lars Lawrence Axelsson Thott, brother of previous. 1483 Ivar Axelsson Thott, overlord of Gotland, brother of previous, son-in-law of Charles Knutsson. 1483–1495 Stenshur the Elder, kingdom's regent, nephew of Charles Knutsson, great-grandson of Charles Alvsson, and great-great-great-grandnephew of Nils Turesson, his deputy, Nils Eriksson Gyllenstierne, grandson of Charles Knutsson. 1495–1496 Canute Posse. 1497–1501 against Stenshur the Elder, between his terms as regent of Sweden. 1499 May 1511 Erik Turesson Bielke, great-great-grandnephew of Nils Turesson. 1511–1513 Gunilla Johansdotter Bees, widow of Erik Bielke, her predecessor. 1513–1520 Tony Eriksson Tott, son-in-law of the two previous, great-nephew of Erik Axelsson, Lawrence and Ivar of Gotland. 1525–1534 Johann, Count of Hoya and Bruckhausen, son-in-law of Stenshur's nephew, brother-in-law of the reigning king Gustav I. In 1534, Gustav I of Sweden, Stenshur's grandnephew, abolished the independent fief. Lord Nicholas Grab was the next commander of the Viipuri castle, 1534–45, but he did not receive the feudal privileges held by earlier chatelains.